Good morning. I'd like to welcome you all to a special session, the financial inclusion opportunity in the digitalization of MSMEs. We are doing this session in partnership with LinkAja, and we'll be previewing parts of a report that will be launched shortly. This report is on the digital finance solution in Indonesia. All our summit attendees will get a copy of the report. Joining me today for this session, I have a very distinguished set of panelists. Joining me today is Eddi Danusaputro, Chief Executive Officer, Mandiri Capital, Indonesia. We have Aldi Haryopratomo, who's on the board of commission of Halodoc, Efishery, and Mapan. Pandu obviously needs no introduction. He's with Indies Capital, AC Ventures, and is also the chairman of the Association. And we have Wibawa, who is the acting chief executive officer of LinkAja. Before I begin, I'm just going to ask all our panelists just to take maybe 30 seconds each to introduce themselves. Eddi, may I ask you to start, please?
Sorry, Zami. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. Introducing myself as CEO of Mandiri Capital, one of the state-owned corporate venture capital firms in Indonesia. As we are state-owned, our mission is twofold. Of course, we want to have a return on investment, but we also help state-owned enterprises by bringing in innovation that most of the time at this stage currently comes from tech startups. So we've been investing in tech startups for the past 6 years. Some of them have become unicorns, some of them have exited also. But the main role is not only to invest and hope and work for an exit 5-6 years later, but bringing those tech startups into the SOE ecosystem to help them grow their business, efficiencies, and so forth. So it has to be a win-win relationship for us as an investor, for the startups, the traction that goes up, and for the state-owned enterprises also. They get innovation and efficiency and new markets and so forth. So happy to be on board.
Thanks, Eddi. Aldi, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Aldi. I'm a serial tech entrepreneur. My first company was Mapan. I founded that in 2009. That was mostly focused on rural fintech. After that, Mapan got acquired by Gojek, and then I became the CEO of GoPay, where we helped transform the digital payments in Southeast Asia. And then now, in addition to building these startups, I also help mentor a lot of startups that are up and coming. I'm on the board of Halodoc, which is the largest health tech in Indonesia, Efishery, the largest aquaculture company in the world, and Mapan, the company that I founded.
Thanks, Aldi. Pandu, please go next.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Pandu Sjahrir. My job really is investor. That's my full-time job. Thanks, Joji, for the kind introduction, and thank you for the friendship with Deal Street Asia and all the friends here. And the focus of today really is my involvement in the digital economy in Indonesia through my role as an investor. So I think I'll probably stop there, Joji, but thank you everyone, and nice to meet all the friends here.
Thank you, Pandu. Wibawa, can we have you next, please?
Okay, thank you, Joji. You may call me Iwan, then I am the acting CEO of LinkAja. And thank you for the other speakers, Pak Eddi, Pak Pandu, Pak Aldi, for being present in this conference. And I hope that everything is wealthy in wealthy conditions, because we know nowadays the pandemic is facing us. And then please, Joji, you may start the session.
Yeah, thank you. So let me start with some very interesting statistics on the penetration of e-wallets and the impact on the pandemic on their adoption, as well as some of the reasons they have been embraced. We will then move into a discussion to highlight the areas in which digital financial inclusion services have moved the needle on financial inclusion. We'll also discuss what ought to be on top of the agenda for digital financial industry in the years to come. and if we truly live up to that promise of financial inclusion. So let me just take a few minutes to get into the report and look at the top line findings. I'm moving into the first slide, which is mobile payments reaches critical adoption. A predominant number of offline MSMEs are now part of Indonesia's digital economy. 97% of them use e-wallets, among the most popular digital financial services. I'd now like to talk about QRIS, Quick Response Indonesia Standard. This was an initiative launched by the Central Bank, Bank Indonesia, and Indonesia Payment Association in 2019 to help with interoperability between digital payment apps. It allowed sellers to use a standardized QR code to accept payments from a variety of e-wallet services. Use trends are encouraging according to our survey, with an overwhelming majority, 50%, having adopted QRIS to accept payments in store. Those who don't use QR codes are perhaps unaware about it, and so maybe a little more push is needed in terms of merchant education. Moving on. Next, adoption among MSMEs doubled. Sorry. Like many other cases we discussed yesterday, the pandemic has vastly increased the acceptance of these digital financial services. Only 23% used e-wallets more than 3 years ago. That is in the pre-pandemic period. The largest segment of growth, 31%, is in the last 12 months. When it comes to how much they actually spend every week using the e-wallet, we find that the maximum usage is in the range of about 100,000 to 200,000 rupiah, roughly about $7 to $14. But the less than 100,000 rupiah to 500,000 rupiah, the $35 band, sees well over 60% of the action. The fact that there are few takers for larger transaction indicates that while penetration is deep, the quality of penetration still has a lot of room for improvement. I want to move on to the next in terms of the reasons, two main reasons for adopting e-wallets. We can split the reasons into two. Most of the medium and small and medium enterprises have adopted wallets under two broad heads, convenience and discounts. We find that convenience wins the day. 41% believe it is more convenient than cash. 26% believe it is more convenient to transfer funds, and 20% stand by it being the most convenient way to accept digital transactions from customers. Another aspect I like to highlight is under convenience is the role these wallets are playing in financial inclusion. 12% of the medium and small enterprises owners live in areas where there's very little access to financial services, and so these wallets help them receive and disperse funds. Discounts would probably be the second largest draw as a category, especially online shopping at 29%, food, both dine-in and delivery at 15%, and finally travel at 13%. Let me just move on to the next slide, which is e-wallets are the second most preferred payment method. Referring again to the type of payments used by merchants, it is here that the impact of these digital financial services is most seen. There are no surprises about cash. And as usual, cash is the most uncomplicated, the most dominant payment method for everyday payment. It's at 72%. But e-wallets are at second spot at 25%. Significantly enough, 40% have never used a debit card, and 67% have never used a credit card. Even cash card penetration is low at 45%, having never been used. At 45% having never used them. It illustrates a gapping void in the market that e-wallets have been effectively able to fill. I just want to come to my last slide. When it comes to medium and small enterprises, they prefer e-wallets over traditional banking. Whether it is a product procurement, handling transaction, or transferring money, we find that MSMEs owners either agree or strongly agree that e-wallets are the preferred option. Money transfers is practically interesting since it has long been the bastion of banks. But 75% of the MSMEs believe that e-wallets work better and are less expensive. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. And I want to quickly get into the discussion. I want to start with the financial inclusion opportunities in the digitalization space. And let me start with Eddi. Eddi, from what we were sort of looking through the presentation, one thing I wanted to ask you was, it's been more than a decade since Bank Indonesia first regulated mobile payments, which is the electronic money, e-money. As of last year, the annual transaction value reached approximately 21 billion, and that's a 49% growth related to 2020, and 43 times what it was in 2016. But the data does not necessarily inform us on the penetration levels here, especially among the medium and small enterprises. And how do you think that these numbers should be understood in terms of financial inclusion? Could you sort of shed some more light here?
Okay, Georgie. So I think we need to break it down a little bit in terms of Indonesia is so big, right? So what's happening in the urban areas, or what we call the tier 1 cities, may not be happening at the same pace at tier 2 and tier 3 cities, right? So the adoption is slightly lagging. So that's one. And technology also plays a part, right? So infrastructure, the ownership and usage of smartphones, although up, but it still needs to be increased. So from a bank's perspective, we also have to differentiate the methods of payments, so to speak. Let's start with payments now. Although personally, I think that payments is just an entry point. Payments in general, from an investor's perspective, either you don't make money or you make very thin money. This is payments in general. It's a loss leader, right? But you have to get payments. You use payments to get the customer base, and then you help cross-sell other products, whether it's lending, insurance, investment, and so forth. But you start with payments because that's an everyday need. So I think there's still a lot of opportunity in that regard. As you mentioned, the regulator since a decade ago have been trying to introduce and encourage a cashless society. Started off with the card-based money, what we call chip-based money. So the money is actually stored into the chip in the card. But now we're moving towards server-based money, which is the money, the balance is stored in the cloud somewhere. But as long as you have your smartphone and you have your mobile banking app, or you have your e-wallet app, then you can access your balance there. So everything needs to happen, whether it is server-based money, whether it is chip-based money, or whether it is traditional banking through mobile banking apps. All three and various other just still need to happen. I think there's no one solution fits all for Indonesia. We're such a large and at this stage very diverse economy. So we welcome all of the players in this sector, whether it's payments companies, e-wallets, whether it is lending companies that also do customer acquisition to SMEs and also individuals in the rural area. I think it's still a large market, and multiple players need to be in this market.
Got it. Thank you, Pandu. Let me come to you. The Indonesian FinTech Association, of which you're the current chairman. Now, you have been working on financial inclusion for a long time. The pandemic was a game changer in terms of adoption. What can you tell us about the level of financial sophistication and the quality of that adoption? Will it continue to stick post the pandemic, and what are the metrics that you are looking at?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. I know I have a slide, but just one slide. If you look at today, I think the pandemic has been a blessing with respect to the adoption of the usage of digital services for the everyday consumer, simply because of what's happening in the pandemic, that you have to isolate it. And what you're seeing is that 2021 is probably a significant growth happening in both e-money, the usage of e-money. So Wibawa, we can talk about that, and how LinkAja has grown, and also pay later awareness for transaction. So, I mean, this slide is just simply saying the awareness has increased tremendously, and the usage of fintech product now are ranging not just in e-money, but also in terms of borrowing using pay later as well as P2P lending. But now it has grown to investment. It has grown to digital insurance. It also has grown to remittance and other businesses. So, this is a fascinating time that today fintech is probably one of the largest investment flows that's happening the last 24, 36 months, and you're seeing a lot of innovation happening in the financial services. So again, the next 12 months too, you will see more innovation happening and further growth and adoption in the fintech space. Thanks, Joji.
Yeah, thank you, Pandu. Aldi, let me come to you. You have been involved in the payment space, especially in terms of getting small and medium enterprises to use technology to make payments for a long time. What's been the state of play in terms of the changes from the time that you were at Mapan to now?
Yeah, no, thank you. I think, Mapan has been around for more than a decade now. And I think the biggest change that we see is the movement from the adoption of paper as the primary way to promote things in the rural areas where Mapan focuses to the phone, effectively, right? So let me give you a more description of how this actually played out, right? So back in 2011, right, when Mapan wanted to promote the products from SMEs to the women in the villages and provide financing for them, we actually had to go by motorcycle and bring paper catalogs, where the women would then browse these products, every day and look at which price and figure out which financing method using like a pen and paper to calculate, right? And it was really difficult to change that actually at the time, even with as smartphone penetration grew. But I think now with the change of digital payments that Pandu mentioned, and with the adoption of smartphones from 11 million at the time to now 70% of people have smartphones in Indonesia, Mapan has completely shifted to become digital. Like 100% of all the payments that is accepted in Mapan is all done through digital payments, right? And 100% of all the goods are actually ordered via the smartphone. And I think if you can see this transition happen in the furthest parts of Indonesia, which is the village that Mapan penetrates, then you can see the opportunity that is available now, because the movement from paper to digital is a very important thing. I think it's happened in the cities quite a while before that, but to see it happen in the areas where Mapan and not even Efisheries play out, it's transformational. So I do feel that this is the beginning of the infrastructure that's being built, right? And I do believe that as the speed of the internet becomes faster, as the phones become better, it's not only goods that you can sell, but also content, education, which will eventually lift the tide in terms of the penetration of services across the economic spectrum in Indonesia, which I think is going to increase the country's overall productivity rate.
Got it. Thank you. Iwan, let me come to you. You are one of the largest players in the e-payment space in Indonesia, and you serve a lot of medium and small enterprises community through your Mitra program. Can you just take us through it and tell us a little more about the program and the traction that you're seeing?
Okay, thank you, Joji. Yes, true that will be focused on leveraging the shareholder ecosystem. And that ecosystem, we want to implement the two-sided business models. The two-sided business model will match the user and the merchant at that ecosystem that we will be focused, which is it is owned by our shareholder. So I think by focusing on that ecosystem, we believe that we will deliver the good metric of the economic, either in the customer side or in the merchant side. So in the last 3 months, we are experiencing that the CLV is higher, customer acquisition is lower. So I think we in the right tracks by focusing on the shareholder ecosystems. And then, moreover, we have a success story in the Telkomsel ecosystem. As we know that we are now, the Telkomsel is our parents. And then they give us the opportunity to digitalize the supply chain ecosystem. And most of the merchant in that ecosystem is our merchant. So I think the problem statement and the principle, oftenly they don't have a clear visibility on the merchant side. They don't have the know your customer. They don't have the financial capability on the merchant side. By digitalizing the ecosystem, the principal has a better visibility on that retailers. So it will give us the opportunity as well to go to the lending side, as mentioned by Pak Eddi. So it is important for us to cross sell. First, it will go to the payment, and then the second, we will cross sell with other products through the retailers at the ecosystem. And moreover, by the success story, we will replicate the success story at the other SOE ecosystem. And as we know that we are formed, or our parent is the 10 SOE. So I think we have a big opportunity to digitalize the ecosystem, and we have a big opportunity to cross-selling within the ecosystem. And we believe that by focusing the strategy and by focusing the ecosystem, we will deliver the better economic units. So that's, Joji, our strategy in LinkAja. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, initial round of setting the context. I just want to move on to the financing part. Last year, the total demand for financing for medium small enterprises was approximately 190 billion, of which the banking sector could provide very little, about less than 40%, according to Bank Indonesia estimates. FinTech lending barely appears to make a dent in reducing the financing gap. For example, one metric shows that as of December, the total outstanding loans acquired to P2P platforms only stood at 2 billion. Aldi, let me just come to you first. You have extensive experience here. Why hasn't FinTech lending been able to sort of fulfill this gap and democratize access to financing? What are we doing wrong here?
No, thank you. So there's two parts to actually having a product to be adopted, right? I think the first part is the inclusion, which means that it's available. And I think that the digital world has increased dramatically. I think the latest survey was 76.2% of inclusion. But a really important part is actually literacy, right? Because it's like giving a weapon or giving access to something. If you're not really sure how it helps you, then one, it causes pause for the MSMEs that are actually needing the product. And second, the really good ones, the really good products for lending from the P2P companies may not actually reach the people who need it. In that rate, it's like 38% right now in Indonesia, according to OJK last time. So I think I see this at Kadin because I'm also the chair of the entrepreneurship in Kadin in the Chamber of Commerce. And one of the things that we're really trying to push is how do we get programs that are available just to be known? Let me give you a clear example. Like the Ministry of Cooperatives has a really cool program called LPDB. And a lot of the fintechs like Redivo, Industry, the Crowdy, they all approach us. How do we promote this to the SMEs? Right now the issue that we saw is actually that if you just promote it through these conferences or through these things which is traditional media or through TV, it doesn't connect directly to the consumer, right? Now, remember, these consumers still get information through WhatsApp groups. They get information through the cooperatives. They get information through their friends, right? So how do we, as the digital natives, try to understand how these MSMEs consume the information? So one of the things that we did, for example, at the chamber was actually have a training for a lot of the cooperatives and create WhatsApp groups so that the information is spread, it's similar to how hoaxes spread. Like, let's follow the hoaxes and actually spread the good information as opposed to the bad one. And I do feel that in order to get inclusion to be beneficial, I think we have to increase the literacy and the access to these consumers, because otherwise you can make something that is meant to be good, which is fintech lending, but then you have bad actors coming in and it becomes illegal lending. And illegal actors will always be there. So it's our role as the industry to figure out a way to educate the consumers, and in this case, the MSME, so that they don't fall prey to these scrupulous actors.
interesting that you mentioned financial education through WhatsApp groups. I think this must be unique to certain parts of Asia. Pandu, what's the role of AFTECH here?
Well, the role, to be honest, for us is really only for policy, advocacy, community collaboration, financial education, and knowledge hub. AFTECH today, we're the largest organization with respect to anything related to FinTech. So, this is our main job, to communicate for policy, also to help promote digitalization and financial service. Another thing I probably need to mention, yesterday was International Women's Day. In MSME, actually half are women entrepreneurs, right? It will be good, Joji. I think next year we have more women in this panel because they have been the one that has pushed forward a lot of this MSME movement, right? And there's also a growing number of incredible entrepreneurs. And I know people that are listening, I saw the attendees list, that are either the investors or entrepreneurs that are building a lot of this digitalization in the financial service. So I just wanted to highlight that as well, right? Because we are in this week, the International Women's Week, I would say, and MSME specifically in financial services are really being brought forward by women, right? So this is also another thing that I just need to highlight. But us in AFTECH, this is really our job, to be able to educate, collaborate, and advocate financial services. Thanks, Joji.
Yeah, thanks, Pandu. Unrelated, we did look at, we produced a report yesterday where we looked at funding for women entrepreneurs across Southeast Asia. We looked at over 1,000 deals to see what percentage of funding went to women entrepreneurs. I'm happy to share the report with all our audience as well as panelists immediately after this session. I'll move on to Eddi. Let me come to you. You have an extensive portfolio of companies that are in the fintech lending space. Amartha, Crowd, Coinworks, to name a few. When it comes to digitalization of MSMEs and closing the financing gap, what is the role of partnership, and what can these companies really offer that banks can't do?
Okay, thanks, Joji, for the question. I do have one slide, if we can pull that up, because we need to break it down. We need to break it down in terms of the players in the market. Not this slide. If we break it down, it's from the principals to the distributors to the retailers to the end consumers. This is it. So level 1 until level 4. This is if we break down the ecosystem. So the level 1 were the manufacturers, the Unilevers and the Procter Gambles and the Nestle's and the Mayoras of the world, right? They're the producers, but they need to distribute their products using distributors and channels, and therefore it ends up at the retailer, and then the retail customer, the L4, purchases it. If we break down this value chain, then you see different financing needs for all 4 levels. So the L1, the principals, generally these are the big banks, the likes of Mandiri, they're playing at this level. And then the distributors between L2 and L3, then these are where companies like you mentioned, Efishery, Coinworks, and the others play, right? And then there's between L3 and L4, and then eventually at L4 level for the retail customers also. So we need to break it down in terms of the value chain and determine which one is most appropriate. And not only that, and not only lending. Yes, your question was predominantly on lending, but there are other needs. SMEs need other digitalizations. For example, POS, point of sale. They need accounting software. They need tax help. So inventory management, HRIS. These are the sorts of digitalization that, regardless of whether you're getting a loan or not yet, then SMEs need to digitalize themselves. So yes, people tend to focus on the lending part or the payments part, but I think SMEs in general, there's a lot of upscaling or upskilling also in regards to their operations. Thank you, Eddi.
Yeah, thanks, Eddi. Ivan, let me just come to you quickly on the same issue. You acquired P2P lending last year, but this space has so many players, there are over 100 players. What's your differentiator?
Okay, thank you, Joji. I think lending will be the key, but we realize that the risk is high as well in the lending business. So our key is we are focusing on the value chain of the ecosystem. By focusing in the value chain, so we will play in a closed loop of the BUMN ecosystem. Of course, by playing in a closed loop, the risk will be low. And as you know that if the risk will be low, we will able to give the pricing on that lending is a reasonable price. We don't promise with the lowest price, but it will be a reasonable price that can be accepted by the market. And as we mentioned before, that we already succeed in digitalizing the ecosystem. So we have a clear visibility on the financial on each merchant. So by having the clear visibility, so the payment is clear, and then we will be confident to disburse the lending to the safe environment. And I think it is important for us to focus on which ecosystem. So as you know that we have a privilege by the SOE that we may play in that ecosystem. So we will take the advantage by serving the ecosystem with the seamless and the reasonable price to the merchant. I think that's the key of LinkAja, how to play in a P2P lending. Thank you.
Got it. I just want to, we have maybe another 15 minutes, so we can look at covering maybe two more topics. One is on the mobile payments. Again, Aldi, let me start with you. In terms of the QR-based payments, the QRIS that was introduced in 2019 to ensure interoperability between different mobile payments systems and reduce cost. What's been the impact, and how has it altered the scene overall? Aldi, can you take this?
Okay, yeah, sure, I can take this. Yeah, so no, we were in the front lines in this, right? So no, I think the first thing that the QR did was it provided a bridge from the financial service providers, whether it's lending, insurance, asset management, to the SMEs, right? So that's one step. Because if you think about it, before QR happened, I think, and even at the time when we were launching payments in GoPay, everybody was using a device, whether it's a device that you scan your phone with or a device that you put your phone number with, right? And those devices cost money. So what it means is that the number of merchants that you can access with those devices is going to be naturally limited, right? But in the GoPay and LinkAja, for example, we push the QR, and I think now QRIS is one of the things that's become national standard with about 15 million merchants. What it means is that these merchants now have a record of the transaction data that they have produced over the month, which can then be used for credit scoring. It also makes it easy for an insurer to assess the risk for those merchants, right, for the SMEs. Now, on the flip side, because more and more merchants beyond the malls, beyond the formal sector are using QR, more and more consumers who are in the middle and lower income classes are now able to use QR, aided by the discounts, of course, that it benefits everybody, right? And so what that means is then the same benefit of access and financial history becomes available for this segment of consumers, right? So 15 million merchants means a whole of a lot more consumers, right? And without this, think about everybody being under under a cloud, right? Now with the QR, that cloud is lifted, Joji, so that these banks and financial service companies are going to be able to come in and provide their services at a much lower cost, right? Even healthcare companies like Halodoc, we are now able to access more customers because payment no longer becomes a barrier, with now LinkAja being on Halodoc as well as GoPay and others, right? And so I feel like that's just the beginning of the bridge that's being built for this middle and mass income class.
Got it. Pandu, in terms of penetration, do you think at some point in the future, Indonesia can be at the level that China is today? And what do you think are the bottlenecks?
Yeah, I think there's actually significant opportunity for this to happen, for this to become China, though we do need significant investment with respect to the rollout of 5G across the nation. Also, we need to also have a view with respect to data. We probably need to have some sovereignty over data, so some control over that. And if you look at from a digital infrastructure investment too, I think data center has to be a focus, right? So if we want to be where China is today, and this is an opportunity, I see this really as an opportunity, there will be and there must be significant investment in digital infrastructure. And also for that, coupled with that, we do need to have some view with respect to national data sovereignty, right? With respect to our view of national cloud, right? Because at the end of the day, this all has to do with information and data. Thanks.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. Maybe let me just come to you. Just adding on to what Pandu said. For instance, like when he talked about a national cloud, data security, a country like, for example, like India has a UPI system, which is like a single system for payments. And we've not seen that in the rest of Asia, like, many other countries. Do you think a large country like Indonesia should go for a unified payment system, something like India does, the unified backend? Eddi, you can take that in terms of a unified payments infrastructure.
I mean that is the goal. That is one of the goals. I think Pandu hit on a very good point, which is sovereignty, right? At the end of the day, we have to be masters in our own country, right? And we cannot rely too much on outside infrastructure providers, right? Whether it's cloud, database, payment system, and so forth. So I think the regulator has a roadmap for this. We're all supportive of this. But it will take time. It will take time. I think we do have right now what we call a national payment gateway, which is a precursor towards reducing our dependency on the major players. Like, apologize for naming names, but the big players like Master and Visa, and so forth, right? So I think there has to be a roadmap. There has to be a roadmap. And let's try. I think it's all about having a roadmap, trying our best, and you never know. Like I mean, Aldi here is the serial entrepreneur, right? There has to be pivots along the way, right? And it'll never have go according to plan. But if we don't have a plan at all, then then we're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, and this discussion has come up a lot in the last couple of days. Because of what's happening in Russia, in terms of because the payment system is all dominated by the global players, and what if you get cut off from the global system? That's a completely separate issue. Just to sort of continue, I just want to come back to Ivan and look at another area that we haven't sort of talked about: the opportunity to tap the Sharia market in terms of when it comes to payments. Indonesia has one of the largest Muslim populations in the world, but yet it has not made much progress in terms of the Islamic finance market, and that's a huge opportunity. Any plans for LinkAja to tap the space, and what exactly are the products that you plan to offer for this segment?
Okay, thank you, Joji. As we know that the mandate from the government for LinkAja is for the financial inclusions. As you mentioned before, that the majority Muslim is Indonesia, and they're looking for the serenity and the security during their transactions. That's why the LinkAja is the first and the leading Sharia electronic money in Indonesia. And we saw the acceptance of the community, especially in the Muslim community, on that Sharia electronic money is a good, I can say it's a great. And then the most interesting is our user in Sharia wallet is healthier than in what is it in non-Sharia wallet. Yeah, I think this is very interesting. I mean, healthier is the CLV is higher, so they don't really sensitive on promotions. They don't really sensitive on a discount. But what they are looking for is the serenity and the compliance of their beliefs. I think it is interesting. And the growth in a Sharia wallet is higher than conventional wallets. So we will add some more at that Sharia compliance product. And then I believe that there are so many opportunity for us to tap the Sharia or in the community. And moreover, we are working with the community. Like in Indonesia, there are big community like NU and Muhammadiyah. That's the biggest Muslim community. And by working with them, we can tap the customer acquisition, lower customer acquisition, and then we will work with them intensively to tap the Sharia market. So thank you, Joji.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I know we are running out of time, but we just want to take a couple of questions more. Aldi, let me come to you. When it comes to financial inclusion, it's more than just credit or mobile payments, right? In the sense that Indonesia has several millions of small and medium enterprises, and this sector, it's not just about payments, but it includes distributors, retailers, wholesalers, producers, the whole digital trade, inventory management, logistics, supply chain. And do you think financial inclusion also means doing all of these on the mobile, on an app?
Thank you. So I think it's just not just on the mobile, but I think it'll also happen on the on the Internet of Things, on the sensors. So you can start having automated financing, for, let's say, renting a solar panel, and automatically blocks off when you don't pay the loan, right? So that's one layer of, like, it will go broader beyond the mobile phones and into devices that we don't have yet. The second thing that I see is actually the deepening of and the broadening of the type of services. So right now it's like basically payments and loans. And then insurance would be the next sector that comes in. Asset management, you're starting to see on the consumer side, right? How does that impact on the company side, which MSMEs also have treasuries that they need to manage, right? Eventually. But if you collect a lot of these small treasuries, it can become big money. So I feel like both the number of devices that will be able to be involved in the financial services in fintech area, as well as the type of services will grow. And I think the question is, like, which direction is first? And that depends on regulation, or which one is going to be more open. And the second is going to be on technology, which is about adoption.
Thanks, Aldi. Pandu, I know you need to go. I just want to give you one last question. One of the things that we want to look at in terms of financial inclusion is the percentage of population in Indonesia that owns or trades in the stock markets, like owns shares. That now seems to be changing, with a lot of millennials actively trading on the stock market using their apps via their mobile. So in that context, are you very bullish on the upcoming IPOs in Indonesia?
Yeah, I think, again, structurally, since we joined, since I was part of the IDX as a board member, we've grown the number of, not users, I would say, the number of people that invested in the stock market from, I would say, 2 million today, so in excess of 8 million. And this is really in the span of 18 months. And a lot of it are young millennials, people that are still learning about investing. I think what's important, the key takeaway, is that younger people now have more knowledge what to do with their income, right? Whether they invest in the stock market or other asset classes, right? And number two, because they are young, this asset will grow over time. Right? So that's also an important part as part of that wallet. So I'm structurally bullish in terms of the growth of people investing in other asset classes, including the stock market, right? So now the next challenge is to also bring higher quality companies, larger companies to come. Yet last year was a banner year for the stock exchange. We had the largest number of either rights issue or IPO from equity market. This year, we already have a couple of IPOs, and we're waiting for one or two of the largest companies to go public. And I would say that I'm structurally bullish of having more and more large, high-quality companies to list in Indonesia, because you can see that you can list and increase the valuation, or in terms of raising significant amount of capital through the stock market. So it has been a good platform for fundraising and also for investing. I'm so sorry, Joji, Pak Wibawa, Mas Aldi, Pak Eddi, I have to jump to another meeting, but really appreciate the time and the friends of Deal Street Asia. You always host great events, and every year it just becomes better and better. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pandu, for joining us. For the rest of the panelists, yes, we'll just go through one question each to all of you to conclude. Let me start with, I can start with Eddi. One of the important things that I wanted to discuss and ask you about was the launch of the Merah Putih Fund. It's believed that it'll have a corpus of about 300 million, and you will be investing in Series B, C, D, companies that are set to become unicorns in the future. And you're looking at companies with a minimum valuation of at least 200 million. I just want you to take our audience through in terms of, the fund, what are the criteria, what are the kind of startups that you're looking at, and how, in the overall context of Indonesia and financial inclusion, how this fund can be a differentiator.
Okay, so let me step back a while on the intention of this Merah Putih Fund. In Indonesia, I think we've done a relatively good job in producing unicorns and decacorns. As of now, I think I'm referring Deal Street Asia on this. We have 11 unicorns and 2 decacorns, right? But if you look at the ownership, then it's predominantly foreign owned. Nothing wrong with that. That's just how the industry works, and we are not anti foreign investment. What we need to do is actually level up in terms of the domestic investment. And one of these ways to do this is to increase investments into Sunicorns, but from domestic investors, including state-owned enterprises. So these investments have been going on for the past 5, 6, 7 years, but we've all done it individually. Mandiri Capital has done it, Telkom has done it, BRI has done it, everybody has done it, but individually. Now we're pulling our efforts together into a fund structure, which is this Merah Putih Fund. We will be, like you mentioned, the target is not early stage, it is growth stage. Approximate valuation about 200 million pre-investment. With the general criteria, there's basically 3. All the founders are Indonesian. The operating company is in Indonesia, and there is a roadmap to exit in Indonesia. That exit could be IPO, that's preferred, but it also could be a strategic sale. So that's the general thing. We're sector agnostic, so all sectors, as long as there's a strong possibility or roadmap to become a unicorn and exit Indonesia.
But 300 is not much. So do you see yourself doing a second fund and a third fund, after the first fund? Because Indonesia has so many unicorns, and you also see.
Yeah, that you're completely correct. I think the 300 million that's the number that's out in the media. That is a first close. We will be having second closes and third close. So hopefully, we're moving towards 600 million, 800 million, and maybe $1 billion. But it'll be in stages. So the first close will be $300 million.
Yeah. Thank you. Let me just come to Ivan. Last question for you, Ivan. You have issued about 140 million in paid up share capital. We understand that you are in the market to raise capital. Can you sort of share some plans in terms of how much you intend to raise and by when? And the second thing I want to ask you is, LinkAja has been in the news for quite a long time. you've been linked to an IPO. Anything that you can share on that? When is that happening? Do you want to hit EBITDA positive first before listing? Please go ahead.
Okay, our focus now is to strengthening our fundamentals. So I think it is important for us to prepare what is our next corporate actions. And now we are in our third year, so we are experiencing the clearer path to the profitability. I think by strengthening our fundamentals, we will be focused on the sustainability and then instead of growth at all cost strategy. So I believe that nowadays the investors is starting to ask how is your path to profitability, and we are working on that. So I think the most important for us is to strengthening our fundamentals. And for your information, is now we are currently in a top 5 unicorn in Indonesia. And then probably we are the largest fintech unicorn in ASEAN. And I think it is important for us for becoming the startup that really strong in the fundamentals. So by strengthening our fundamentals, the IPO will be no problem with us. But I'm sorry, I cannot mention where or when. So I think our focus now, fundamental is the most important. Okay, thank you, Jaji.
Yeah, thank you, Juan. Aldi, my last question to you is, again, a big development that is seen over the last 12 months is that everybody in Indonesia is rushing to buy a bank, a digital bank. The e-commerce companies, the lending companies, the travel companies, every startup wants to buy a bank in Indonesia. How do you see the whole thing play out?
Okay, so
I think... Sorry.
So yeah, that's an interesting question. But I think the difference between the payment industry and the banking industry is that in payments, there's a lot of network effects, and it's generally like almost winner takes all. Like 1 or 2 players will shake it out, and you have the big guys, maybe 3 players in the top, right? Now, what you've seen in actually most banking industries is actually more diversified. Even Indonesia has now more than 100 banks, right? And what will happen, I think, is that you will have a lot more different niches covered by each of the different kinds of banks. You're already seeing this in the US, how most digital banks are really focused on a target segment that previously only use a portion of the banking. But by having these digital banks focusing on different target segments, which I think they will start to have to do that, they will be able to provide a more comprehensive solution for the consumer. So it's a little different, right? If you're selling insurance, if you're an insurtech, you're focused on insurance. But if you're a digital bank, I think what's going to play out is you're going to start seeing them focus on market segments and try to partner with different players and provide a more comprehensive solution. In the way that, for example, Jago is partnering with like the Gojek ecosystem, right? You have Allo Bank, and all these things. So they're all focused on the ecosystems, and they have a target segment, and that target segment is the ecosystem target segment. That's the way that I see it will play out.
Got it. Yeah, we run out of time. I'll just take 30 seconds each for your predictions for the rest of 2022. Aldi, you can go first.
I think 2022, hopefully, I think you'll start seeing a bounce back, right? And because we've started last year, the FinTech P2P lending issues have started to educate the consumer about the importance of safety. I hope that with the regulators becoming more open to innovation, you'll start seeing innovations in other sectors beyond lending for SMEs, asset management, insurance, and all the whole supply chain financing discussions that we have today.
Eddi, your predictions for 2022?
Yeah, so I'll mirror Aldi's sentiments on the economy. In the microeconomic side, I think we're going to be in a good position. There's going to be a rebound. I'm going to use my investor's cap. Honestly speaking, the past couple of years, we've seen a lot of, I guess, inflated or high valuation in terms of the ask from predominantly early stage startups. Hopefully, that'll come down to be a much more reasonable valuation, and which is good for the ecosystem. So it's all good.
Juan, your predictions?
Okay, I see the clearer path, for the startup in Indonesia, and I think we have to be careful to pick the playing field. So 22 is a very clear path, and let's have fun in the 22.
Yeah. Thank you. We are already, I think, more than 10 minutes past our time. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you to our audience, and thank you to our panelists. It was great insights from all of you. And we will be sharing a report on the financial inclusion in Indonesia to all our attendees. That should be ready soon. And you will also get the report on women entrepreneurs and the funding that they received in 2021. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you to our panelists.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you, Janji. Thank you, Pak Eddi. Thank you, Aldi. Thank you, everyone.
Everybody.
Yes, thank you.